Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is, it says buying retail arbitrage, but it's really about retail arbitrage. My name's Richard. I started selling on eBay probably about 2.5 to 3 years ago. Why I started, I don't know. I actually watched a lot of YouTube, and all of a sudden, this guy pops up that he's going to yard sales and then selling it online at a trading house. A lot. People can actually do that and make money. So I actually started watching John Cincinnati Picker, and I just kept watching and watching and watching, and I was like, I think I can do that. And so I figured I'd give that a try, and yeah, I love it. Apparently, I didn't have enough challenges in my life. I'm actually a software engineer, which is my full-time job. And before I started reselling, I got into Christmas lights with like LEDs and the music. And as my mom says, when I get into something, I just dive in and just keep doing it. And so I got into reselling, and so now that's my passion, and I enjoy that. I live in a small town in Butler, Missouri, which is, you know where Kansas City's at, and then if you know where Joplin's at, kind of like in the middle of those two. Goals with reselling. I just keep learning like everybody else. There's always something new to learn, and different people will teach you different things. So that's the slide here. We've already did about me, so I don't need to do that. The purpose. What's the purpose of this talk is to get an understanding on buying retail arbitrage for the purpose of reselling. In the conclusion of this, buying retail arbitrage, and is it right for me? Is it right for you? Because not everybody can really do retail arbitrage. It depends on where you live.
What does it even mean?
And retail arbitrage is
They did. They grab us.
what is retail arbitrage? That's going to be the next thing. And then we'll go into buying retail arbitrage, and then going through how to list retail arbitrage. So what is retail arbitrage? Retail arbitrage is when you go to like a department store or a store and buy things and resell them. Usually they're brand new items. You go to Target, Sears, you can even go to Home Depot. They have clearance sections in Home Depot. Mine is, I do a lot of Walmart because I live in a small town. So they usually send us things that people in my town don't usually buy, and they just clearance it off, and I go in there and just grab it all up. The other thing too is a lot of people do pallet buying. I don't do that, but people do pretty good on buying pallets and selling the items that way. So buying retail arbitrage is actually, there's some pros and then there's some cons about it. So some of the pros, first thing is retail arbitrage is easy to list because with everything it's got a barcode. And so we were talking about that earlier, you just scan it on your phone and then you can actually see how many are selling, how many have sold. So that's pretty easy. Another thing with retail arbitrage, usually you don't have to clean it. There's no cleaning. Another thing, there's no testing. You know, if you're buying electronics or something like that to resell, you don't even have to test it. It's pretty much all brand new sealed in the box, so you almost guarantee it's going to work. Not always, but almost. And another thing with retail arbitrage is because it's not like a used item, that might have a flaw that maybe you listed and you didn't disclose that, and they're going to want to return it. With retail arbitrage, there's virtually no returns. It does happen, but you don't get a whole lot of returns with retail arbitrage because people are buying because that's what they need or they want.
So when you're listing it, do you hit new or used? Because you bought it secondhand, so it's still new?
It's still new, yes.
It's new in box.
And with tabs
And I think I talked about too, it's easy to find comps on those.
Yeah.
Now, some of the cons about selling a retail arbitrage is there's a lot of competition. A lot of times, if stores are putting things on clearance, it might not just be in your area, it could be nationwide. So you're gonna have a lot more competition for trying to sell that item. Another thing is the market changes as you're applying on retail arbitrage a lot because of the competition. You'll see a lot of times you might buy an item at one price and it's selling at this price, but then you'll find later on that the price keeps dropping because more and more people are actually listing those type of stuff and they're trying to be more competitive to buy theirs versus buying mine. And another thing with buying retail arbitrage is you need to be careful about what you buy. Because if you buy a big quantity of things, you can get stuck with a lot of stock that you can't sell.
Yeah.
Another thing, be careful on retail arbitrage things that have expiration dates. You can do that, but you have to disclose the expiration date and you've got to make sure you keep track of that, because if you have listed in your store something that has an expiration date and it expired, eBay will come along and pull that listing, and if it happens too many times, you'll get suspended. They'll suspend you, they'll give you like a 3-day suspension. So things to consider when buying retail arbitrage, the first bullet point is everyday items. Those usually are pretty successful because those are items that people use every single day. Makeup. But again, some makeup has like a best buy date, things like that, and you got to disclose it, you got to be careful about that. Clothes is another good one. I've done very good with like clothes. I go to Walmart and they'll put items on clearance. And one example is I went in there, they had all the shirts on clearance for like $2 and $3. So I looked at them all, I tracked down the manager, and I said, I'll buy them all if you'll sell them to me for $1 each. So she looked at it and she said, okay. And there was somebody there looking through the shirts and it was like, I'm sorry ma'am, those are all sold. I got some dirty looks from that one, let me tell you. Another thing go ahead.
It's now $20.
Garden items. I do a lot of garden items because I usually buy the garden items in fall because that's when they're clearing them out to get rid of it to make room for other stock. So that's the best time to buy garden items. But the thing is you have to have the space for that because even though they'll sell year round, but the majority of it is going to sell come springtime. So yeah, another thing with retail arbitrage is you want to make sure you have plenty of space. If you're going to buy in bulk, and that's what I suggest, is you buy in bulk. Okay, comps. With retail arbitrage, you want to be really careful and you always want to look up comps. You might think something will sell, but maybe it just might not even sell. You want to look at the price that you're spending, is it going to be worth it and you're going to make enough profit? Because with retail arbitrage, a lot of times you've got to start marking down prices because of the competition, or else you'll get stuck with a lot of product.
Where do you find them?
A lot of times, like in a lot of stores, they have clearance aisles.
No, I mean when you look up the comps.
I strictly do eBay, so what I do is I pull it up
eBay.com?
and I just grab the barcode, I scan it, pulls up current listed, and then I'll look at sold. And that brings us to our next one, which is the sell-through rate. With retail arbitrage, you need to be looking and understanding the sell-through rate. Because there could be 100 listed right now, but in the last 9 days, only, say, 5 had sold. That's an item you definitely want to stay away from. Even if you get it cheap enough, it's because you're going to have to really get that price down, but you still might not even sell it. So, but like I actually bought something, it was a Garmin GPS. Now, I paid $40 for it, which was pretty high, but I looked at the sell-through rate, and the sell-through rate was like 200%, because there was very little listed, so I knew I'd be able to sell it quick. I just lowered the price a little bit so I could dump it quick and made a little bit of money on it. And then also too, when you're actually looking up the sold comps and things like that, that's actually going to determine how you're going to list the item. If you buy in big bulk quantity, it depends. You might want to actually do like a quantity discount. In order to do the quantity discounts, promotions, things like that, you have to have an actual store to do that. I find by doing the quantity discount, that entices the buyer not just to buy one, but to buy multiple of that same item. Also too, that could give you, depending on the type of item, if it's a clothing item like shirts or shoes, you could possibly do a variation listing. A variation listing is really when they go in and look at like a shirt. Okay, you might have different sizes of the shirt. So if you put that in there, you could list them all individually, but I find it's a lot easier now doing variation listing and just adding in the sizes, and they go in, and when they see that, you can also offer them a quantity discount. And on some of the shirts, I had to come in and buy mediums, larges, and extra larges of that shirt. So that enticed them to actually go buy more of the product. And I actually did, because I actually asked Kat, because I was like, hey, how do you do a variation list? And she goes, I don't know, I just list them individually.
I was like, I'm not doing it. I just do them individual. So he did it and put a video out on how to do that. So he has that video on his channel, like step by step how to do it.
Yeah, variation listings, it sounds like it's difficult, but once you do a couple of them, it's really easy to do. And so with retail arbitrage, especially with clothing items, it's better to do that because that's going to entice the buyer to possibly buy more. Because you might have different colors of the shirt. So you might put the color, they'll go in there and say, okay, I want a quantity of one of this, a quantity of two of these. Kind of talked about volume. With retail arbitrage, like I've made the mistake, I go in there and buy these one-off items, and you're not going to make a lot of money that way. If you make a little bit, you'll be doing pretty good. Find the best way is buying in quantity, bulk amount. Like when I went in and bought all these rain-free shirts, I bought probably close to 100 shirts. And those shirts I actually sold in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, they sold very quickly.
What were you selling them at?
They were different styles, so they were going all the way from $14 all the way down, I think, to $9.
Okay.
Then you paid
And
a
then-
bucket shirt.
What's that?
Then you paid a bucket shirt.
Mm-hmm.
You paid $1 a shirt.
$1 a shirt.
What were they retailing for at Walmart?
They had different prices. Some were like $9, some were up to $19. But that doesn't necessarily, because they were trying to sell it at that price, doesn't mean that's what it's going to sell for on eBay. That's why it's important to look at comps and what.
Because they could sell lower or higher, guys. They might sell higher, like if that's somebody's favorite shirt and now Walmart quit carrying them, then they could sell for more than the tag says. So that's why the comps
Exactly.
are important.
I had some shirts that I was able to sell more than what Walmart was offering it for.
Oh, wow.
So. Okay, and then we kind of talked about, it's not on the slide, but I added later, which is expiration dates. But if you're going to do things with retail arbitrage that have expiration dates, you want to make sure you keep note of that, because you don't want to have, like I said, things expire on you and then get the listing pulled. Also, too, you don't want to get stuck with a bunch of product you can't sell because of the expiration date. So one trick when you're coming close on an expiration is maybe lock some of those up. Offer them cheaper, because it's better to sell it at a lower price than not get nothing for it at all and be stuck with it and take a loss. Another thing, you want to promote. With retail arbitrage, because it's a big competition out there, you're going to want to promote your item and promote it high. So that way, when somebody's looking for the product, yours is right at the top.
What do you call high? 10%?
It depends on the item. Each item's different.
Right.
And Kat will probably talk about promotions and things like that. But usually when you pull it up, it will give you a suggested promotion percentage.
Right.
And you can go with that, go a little bit lower, or even go higher. But yeah, with stuff like that, you're going to want to promote it because you want to get rid of it quick.
Dalton.
Hey, Richard, could
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood sell-through rate. So if you've got your 100, there's 100 for sale and 5 have sold, you take 100 divided by 5.
It's a
and you get
5%. 5%.
So it's 5%
That would be a 5% sell-through rate.
Okay.
So
You do not
take
want
the
that.
other example, go the other way. So let's say that only 5 are listed, but 100 sold.
Right.
Okay,
You better buy
that's a
everyone.
very high sell-through rate. So like, you need to pick that up. Okay, so we talked, okay, reduce the price too. Sometimes, that's why with retail arbitrage it's hard, and a lot of people, they just kind of like grab it and just leave it sit. But when you're with retail arbitrage, you're gonna wanna keep track of those products and watch how the market's doing, because it's gonna change. Sometimes if the quantity is getting, if there's not that many listed out there, you might wanna bump the price up a little bit. But, and most times, there's a lot more competition, so like you list it at one price, you might be way down on the list because yours is so high, you're gonna have to reduce that price. So that's one thing with retail arbitrage you need to keep track of. And like with everything, you know, the money is not on the sale, the money, you make your money on the buy. So you always want to get things as cheap as you can. And that's why with me, I go to Walmart all the time, but they know me now. It's like, oh God, here he comes. What is he gonna sell? What does he want us to reduce the price on now? But I don't have a problem with doing that. In fact, I actually did a video where I talked about an item I bought. And I filmed a little bit in the store where I went in there and they had them, I think it was a garden item. They had them for $2.75 each. So I went and I said, hey, if I bought them all, would you sell them for $2 each? And he goes, I'll tell you what, if you buy them all, I'll even do better than that. You can have them for $1 each. So never be afraid to ask. Don't ask for your employee. You gotta ask for the manager. Because only the manager can make that determination.
Richard, you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you use the barcode scanner in Walmart?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, and actually, I'm gonna talk about that too. Did you get just the right one? No, go the wrong way. Okay. Listing retail arbitrage, things to consider, multi-quantity versus variation listings. So things to consider, photos, very important. A lot of times with retail arbitrage, you'll find a stock photo. Don't use the stock photos. Now there is cases I have actually used the stock photo, but that's only because I'm still in the store and I want to list it. It's like a game to me. It's like, I want to know, can I actually sell this before I buy it?
Oh my God.
So if I'm able to do that, you'll see a video coming up. It's never happened yet so far. Another thing too, a lot of people say, you know, I don't have to take photos because it's already got a stock one there, people know what they're gonna get. Not all the time, because if you buy video games or even action figures, things like that, people buy the video games because they want to be collecting, they want a collection and they want it sealed, but they want to know, does the seal have a little tear in it? Or things like that. They want to see the actual item that you're selling. Same thing with action figures. You know, the cardboard. They want to know if they might be a collector collecting. They want to know the condition of the cardboard, the packaging. Is it damaged in any way? So it's very important. So if you get a bunch of, like, say, action figures, look over the packaging. If you have one that's a little bit damaged, set that one aside, list it separately. What I'll do is I'll actually set aside, wait for these ones to sell, and then I'll go ahead and do that, and then put new updated pictures on it. Another thing I have on here is LPs. LPs you don't see go on clearance very often, but they do happen. And that's another thing. If it's sealed, you got people that actually collect LPs. And they're very particular about how it is. Because you can buy a brand new one and the corner could be, because it dropped. You need to disclose that because the buyer might not want to buy it because of that. I put that on there as an example. When I basically sell an item, I actually take angles of every side, the corner, because there might be stuff about the product they might want to basically read to see, you know, like if it's a medication type item, things like that. I take really close-up pictures so they can actually see that top, bottom, all the sides. So now we come into, once you've bought the item, now you're going to figure out, like I said, how am I going to list this? Well, it depends on how much you buy of the product. And am I going to do a multi-quantity? Am I going to do a variation listing? So like with a multi-quantity, I do a lot where I actually do offer them a quantity discount. And a lot of people say, well, you're gonna lose money doing that. No, where you're gonna make your money, even though you do a quantity discount, you're gonna make your money back on the shipping. Is where you make your money, because if I said, and I actually did a video on this and I kind of broke it down, where if I sold 4 of these to 4 different buyers, what is it gonna cost me? You know, I make more money for each sale, but then I'm eating more because it was offered free shipping. And this buyer came in and actually bought 4, so I did the breakdown, selling to 4 different buyers, same product versus one buyer buying 4 that same product. And even though they got the price cheaper per item, I actually was able to save on the shipping. So I think on that video, I think I talked about knowing your shipping options. Those are real important too, because if you start offering a quantity discount, that's gonna start changing how you're gonna ship the item and what's it gonna cost to ship. And another thing, when determining if I'm going to do a multi-quantity listing versus a variation listing, or even just a single item listing, look and see how items are selling. Are they lotting them together? In other words, selling 2 of them or 4 of them. You want to see which ones, because you'll find all kinds of, they'll sell one-off, 2s or 4s. But you're going to want to look and see what's the majority of people buying. Are they buying that multi-quantity at bulk buy at one time? Or are they doing it a single at a time? So that's going to kind of determine, when you buy it, you need to look at that and determine, hey, how am I going to sell this? You know, what's the best way to kind of sell it? Am I going to do a multi-quantity, or am I going to do a variation?
Can you give an example?
Usually the items that you find that they lock together is because it's a lower priced item. So an example now is like makeup. A lot of times with makeup, and I'll only buy it when it's really cheap. I'm cheap. But a lot of times with makeup, I'll lot together because it sells a lot easier. Because somebody goes into like makeup, they like a particular brand, particular color, lot them up and sell them off that way, and you'll sell them quicker. Garden items, I don't lot garden items together because those I find people buy one-offs a lot. But if you offer the quantity discount, they'll come in and that entices them to actually then buy more of that item versus just buying one. So the variation listings, what items should you do for variation listings? Okay, well, the shirts. I gave an example about the shirts. When you have different sizes, they might be all the same shirt, but you have different sizes. Do a variation listing on how many smalls you have, how many mediums you have. So when the buyer goes in, they say, okay, I like this shirt. It gives them an option drop down. Okay, I want medium. Or you might have shirts that are the same shirt, but they're different colors. Okay, so you can do a variation listing with the different colors. So if they're looking for a yellow one, then when they select yellow, the picture pops up of the shirt being yellow. Yeah, and you also get 8 photos per variation. So you get additional photos. 8, no, you do get up to 12, that's right. You get up to 12 for each variation. So if you have like, say 5 different colors, you can have up to 12 photos for each color. So that's kind of nice there too. Another thing, now shirts are pretty easy. It's going to be color, it's going to be size. Shoes. You buy a bunch of shoes that are the same shoe. Okay, you can do the shoe size, because that's real important. But let's say you buy a bunch of shoes, and they might be the same brand, but they're just slightly different. You can list those in a variation, and then put the type of shoe. Like a lot of shoes, women's shoes, they have special names for them on the box, and you put that in there. So that allows them to select it, then they see that style of shoe. And when they select that style, then you also see how much quantity you have of that shoe. Mm-hmm. So when we're doing multi-quantity and variation listings, you've got to be careful about how much of each item you have. Especially with the variation listings, you want to know how many smalls you have, how many mediums, and what sizes and everything like that. And a lot of times when you're doing either a multi-quantity or a variation listing, don't put all the quantity out there. Because sometimes you might miscount, and then you'll end up, this has happened to me, where I've sold something, and I didn't have the product. So I actually did a video on that too, where I actually had to pay full price at Walmart. But I'd rather do that than cancel the order. And you'll find, like, I find a lot with retail arbitrage, to the point that Kat just brought up, is once you start running low on a product, it seems like they just start going. It's like,
eBay sends auto out for
and
you.
say, hey, they only have so much of this left, you better get it now.
Yeah. Oh, he wants to say hi to Richard. Well, you have to go over there with Mr. Richard if you would like.
So
Okay.
right, it depends on where you live
thought he was
and what
on.
type of retail arbitrage you can do. You know, if you're living in a big town, you're gonna have more opportunities, different sourcing, but when you live in a small town like she does and I do, the best thing for me to do is walk